Vets families. It's your Hope Elementary School counselor, Karen Phillips. Thank you so much for joining me today as we talk all about relationship building with our children. And although building a strong relationship with your child can seem like a given, it seems like we spend a lot of time together, this should be pretty easy. Sometimes we come into roadblocks, whether you have a 6-year-old who just wants to be on Minecraft all the time, or you have a preteen who is kind of pulling away and kind of just secluding themselves in their rooms. Sometimes building that close relationship with our kids can be a challenge. And so today we're going to talk about some different communication tips and strategies and some different family habits that might help in fostering some closer relationships with our kids. So let's go ahead and get started. We are going to begin with some of these communication tips, and a lot of times when we think of communicating with our kids or communicating with anybody, oftentimes we think about talking and the words that we use, but a really important part of communication is also listening. So really listening to the things that your children or your child is telling you. From the time kids are learning to talk, they're really eager to share parts of themselves with us, to share their world with us, and to do that through talking. And oftentimes, especially with little ones, sometimes the things that they're telling us can seem kind of trivial, and it can be tempting to just zone them out or tune them out. It's really important for us, as much as we can, to try to pay attention to those small things that they share with us. And I know you've probably heard this before, but as often and as willing as we are to listen to some of the small things that they share with us, the more willing they will be to come talk to us when there's those big things that we want them to share. So really being attentive to them with the little things can have a big impact and a big return down the road. So yeah, just listening to the things that they share with us. The next one is talking with them about how you're feeling and encouraging them to do the same. So we want to not just hear the different things that our kids are experiencing, but we also want to know how they feel about what they're experiencing. And we can model this for them by sharing age-appropriate things about our days. Like, for example, maybe in the evening you can talk about I was stuck in traffic today, and that's something that happened. But then also modeling how to share your feelings. So I was feeling really frustrated when I was stuck in traffic today, and then I was worried that I wouldn't make it to school on time to pick you up. Or I felt really scared when you ran out into the street because I was afraid you would get hurt. And so we're sharing something that happened and also sharing how we felt about it. And then when we do this, it kind of models for our kids how to talk about their feelings. And it also increases their emotional intelligence. As they hear us share about emotions and identify them, it helps them to learn how to do that as well. All right, another part of communication that is really important is our nonverbal communication. There's so much that gets communicated without words. And so I kind of want us to pull away for just a minute to talk a little bit more about nonverbal communication. So when we talk about nonverbal communication, one of the things that we are looking for is facial expressions. So much gets communicated in our face. Consider how much information can be conveyed by a smile or a frown or an eye roll. I don't know if you've ever been on the receiving end of one of those. Sometimes the person's face, our child's face, is the first thing we see even before they say anything, and that can tell us a lot about how they're feeling. So paying attention to facial expressions. The next one is paralinguistics, and so maybe this is a word you've never heard of before. Para just means alongside of, and linguistics is language or words. So paralinguistics is just the vocal communication that is separate from the actual language. So this might include things such as tone of voice, inflection, volume, pitch, things like that. So, for example, your kid says, "I'm fine," or "I'm fine," or "I'm fine." Same words, different tone of voice, different inflection, it all communicates something different. And oftentimes the paralinguistics, these inflections, they're going to give you a better indicator of how your child is actually feeling, even more than their words. So kind of paying attention to that stuff. And even if you notice, like, wow, you're saying you're fine, but the way you're saying it doesn't match. And so tell me, really, how are you doing, or what's going on? So kind of trying to dig a little deeper and looking for those clues. And a lot of times those nonverbals will give you some of those clues. Another part of nonverbal communication is body language and posture. So somebody's like kind of slumped down and low, that might indicate that they're either feeling sad or tired. If they're animated and they're talking with their hands and moving really fast, maybe they're excited. Arms are crossed, that says something. Fists are clenched, that says something. So our bodies also give information about how we're feeling. So paying attention to what your child's posture is, what their body's doing, can be really helpful. And then finally, appearance, especially as our kids are getting older and they have more independence, more say in their own personal style. Appearance also gives us information, whether it's the choice of colors that they're wearing, the different hairstyles that they have, or just other factors that affect their appearance. That's also a form of communication. So just paying attention to that. All right, so let's get back to it now. So that was just kind of a pull away to talk a little bit more about nonverbal communication, because that is a big part of communicating with our kids. The next one is just apologizing for our mistakes. So nobody's perfect, we know that, but it's helpful for our kids to see us acknowledge that. So sometimes we're going to mess up, whether it was unintentionally, we forgot something, or maybe we were just feeling really frustrated, we kind of like yelled more than was necessary. And so whenever we make a mistake, it's just helpful for us to apologize to our kids, for us as their authority figure to see us, kind of humble ourselves before them and recognize that we messed up and we need to own up to it and apologize to them. And it shows respect to them. And again, we want to model this for them. We want our kids to be the kind of people who will apologize when they make mistakes, and so we need to show them how to do it. And also it means a lot to them for us to recognize that our actions and our words impact them, and for them to see us realize and admit to that can be pretty powerful in that relationship building, in that connecting time. And so when we make mistakes, whether intentionally or unintentionally, we just want to apologize for those. All right, let's transition now into another thing to help with relationship building, which is just spending time together. So making this a priority of spending that time, and how this looks is going to differ from family to family, from child to child, from day to day. And so regardless of how you spend that time, it's just, again, making that a priority. So this means that you might have to set aside work or chores or different things to be intentional about spending time with your child or with your children. And I know this can be inconvenient at times, because I know life gets super busy and we have so many responsibilities. But if we take that time to spend time with our kids, it shows them that we value them, that we value a relationship with them. And then another way to spend time together is taking an interest in things that your child is interested in. If there's a certain sport they enjoy, maybe getting out and playing that sport with them. If it's a certain video game they like, even though sometimes we don't enjoy those as much, but it's a way of entering their world and doing something with them that they enjoy, because they enjoy it because it's something that makes them feel good. And so now they're feeling good doing that activity, and now they can share those good feelings with you, and that can be a bonding experience. And so you're really trying to figure out what their interests are and joining them in them, even if it's not something that we ourselves are interested in. And then that one-on-one time together, again, that can be really tricky, especially if you're busy or you've got a lot of kids. And so it doesn't have to be these big elaborate things, but maybe if you're running to the store, take them with you if they want to come, or it could be just even at bedtime, tucking them in, just talking for a few minutes about their day or about what's coming up. Just trying to have those individual connections with your children can be really helpful in building those strong bonds. And being fully present when you are spending time. So just being in the same room isn't necessarily spending time with them, especially if they're trying to talk to us and we're reading an email, responding to a text. So we want to try to, when we're trying to be intentional with spending time with our family, with our kids, it might be helpful to put the device away. And I'm as guilty as anybody about sometimes being distracted by that. But when we're trying to be intentional about our time, then that can be something that hinders that. And that's hard too, because, again, we're grown-ups. We have responsibilities. We have things that we need to tend to. But when it's a time that we've set aside to spend time with our family, spend time with our kids, then maybe it might be helpful just to even put it in another room for a while, so that we're not tempted by it. And then another really cool thing about spending time with our kids, with our family, is the shared memories that we create together. These are things that we in the future will look back on and will recall together, and it'll give us a connection even to the future, and it creates those bonds that happen. And something that also happens when we spend time together is we almost develop this sort of shared family language, and there's actually a word for that. So we're going to learn another new word today, and that is called familex. So basically family dialect. So it's like that shared language that a group develops through sharing experiences together. So this might come from inside jokes that have developed from maybe a funny story that happened, or maybe a common abbreviation or that you have for an object in your home, like the remote control or something, or it could be a mispronunciation that a family member has of something, a word or a name. They can come from anywhere, but it's just almost, again, that shared language that you develop. Like, for example, in my family, growing up, my brother was the only grandkid for a while, and I have an Aunt Maria. He couldn't say her name. He called her Bia. And to this day now, we're all well into adulthood, and we still call her Aunt Bia. That's just became the name for her. Also, another example, my husband, he has a smoothie that he makes for the kids often in the morning, and it's called the special. And the kids just know, I want the special, and they know that it's peanut butter, banana, milk, all those things. And so that's kind of a shared language within our family. Or sometimes we refer to our kids as our pineapples, and that's just an inside joke that came after watching the Chipmunks movie several years ago. And so I think every family has these things, but even identifying them can be kind of a neat experience. And just knowing that we have this shared language can be very connecting for a family and very bonding for them. And that's something that develops through that time together, through those shared experiences, through those memories that have been created. Another important part of communication with our kids is knowing how they give and receive love. And that some insight into this is given by the author Gary Chapman. He actually wrote a book years ago, mainly for couples, but it has expanded to include kids. And so, kind of according to Chapman, there are several different ways or languages that people use to communicate love to each other. They are words of affirmation. And, the slide's being goofy. Okay, acts of service. I must have had a transition that was put on there. Okay, physical touch, gifts, and there we go, quality time. Alrighty. And so one way to build a strong relationship with your child is to figure out what their primary love language is. For example, if words of affirmation are very meaningful to your child, then you might be intentional about really showing appreciation when they help you with something. Or maybe you'll write them a note and leave it under their pillow, just some encouraging words. Or if they have a phone, you could even text them just things that you love and appreciate about them, just out of the blue. If your child is somebody who really appreciates acts of service, then maybe you help them clean their room or organize their closet, or you make them their favorite meal just because it's their favorite. Physical touch, maybe they like to get their back scratched, or you can be just like really free with your hugs toward them. Gifts, it doesn't have to be anything major. It just shows that you're thinking about them when you're not with them. And so maybe it's when you're at the grocery store and you just grab their favorite box of crackers or something because that's something that they enjoy, and it'll mean something to them. Or when it is their birthday or it's Christmas, you are thinking through what their interests are, and you're being really intentional and thoughtful about what gift you'll give them. Quality time. So again, we've talked about time before. It's just those shared activities, things that they enjoy, that time together. So oftentimes problems in our relationships come when we're not speaking the same language. For example, for the child whose primary love language is quality time, a parent can get them gift after gift. I mean, get them the newest PS4, get them the newest phone. But if you're not spending that time with them, they're not receiving love from you in the most meaningful way. And so it's learning what communicates love to our children and trying to speak that to them. And so we don't have time to dive too deeply on this topic, but a Google search, or there's a book, again, The Love Language for Kids, written by Gary Chapman and Ross Campbell. But that could give you more information if that's a topic you want to learn more about. All right, let's move on to family habits for supporting relationship building in our families. So one habit we can develop is involving our children in decision making when possible. So obviously there's certain big decisions that we as the grown-ups just need to make, but there's some other ones that we can give our children a voice to. So maybe that might include what to eat for dinner as we're making our grocery list, what movies to watch, or maybe even, I don't know, maybe what color to paint your walls, or what vegetables to plant in your garden. So just giving each child in your family a voice, showing that you value their opinion. Another thing we can do is having family meetings. And if you're regularly eating dinner together, that's a helpful time to do it. Or just being intentional once a week, once a month, whatever, getting everybody together just as like a check-in time. Like, how are you doing? What's going well? What's not going so well? Again, this gives every person in the family a chance to share and to have a voice in what's going on. And then also just developing that culture of trust. So if I say I'm going to do something, then I'm going to do it. I know sometimes things come up, and that's life, and that goes back to apologizing, even if it was something that was beyond our control. But if I say I'm going to be somewhere, or I'm going to do something, or I'm going to help with something, then I'm going to do that. And that shows our children that we are somebody that they can trust, that we're a safe person to them, that will show up when we say we're going to show up. Okay, so in review today, we have discussed some different communication tips for commuting with our kid, whether it's just listening, so just not even talking, but listening, modeling how to talk about our emotions, paying attention to their nonverbal communication. We talked about the importance of spending time together and how that can create extra bonds in our family through that shared memories, through kind of that shared language that we develop. We talked about love languages and discovering what our children's primary love languages are and trying to communicate to them in that way. We also talked about some different habits to develop as a family, whether it is allowing them to have a voice in decisions, having family meetings, honoring our commitments to them. So there's a lot of different ways we can build those strong relationships with our kids. And so after hearing all those things, again, you might already be doing a lot of these, but maybe there's some different things that you haven't tried, or some different things you want to learn more about. And so I'm curious. So on that Google form that's connected with this, share maybe what are like three new ways, or just different ideas you have about ways that you might connect more with your kids, or ways that you can build stronger relationships with your kids. I'd love to hear that. All right, thank you again for joining me today. Bye-bye.